Hey, thank you for coming, everyone, to this webinar. I'm excited for it because last year we released Persona Live Spend, and it was the first time that credit card and debit card spend had been attached to segmentation. Throughout this year, we've learned more and more of what people want and unexpected things that people were using the combination of segmentation and credit card data for. And we've built a lot of that into our platform. We've released a lot of new features related to segmentation, some of them which I'll be showing for the first time today. So in this next 30 minutes, I'm going to be showing you four game-changing use cases for the combination of credit and debit card data and segmentation for retail site selection. And in the end, we have an offer for you. So let's get into it. Real quick though, before we get it in, I want this to be interactive. So in the bottom, I think some people are already adding stuff. Questions in the chat and we'll make sure that we get to that. Okay, let's get into it. First, why spend? Why connect credit card spend to segmentation? So when you think about retail site selection, it is a mad, multifaceted art and science. But before you send someone in to begin to do the hard work of boots on the ground site selection analysis, there's two things that you need to answer. One is what percentage of these people in the trade area will buy? And the second is how much will those people spend? And by combining segmentation with credit card spend, we are answering that as fast as I have ever seen. And this is a great way for immediately filtering out sites. And it will help your teams have three characteristics which are really important in 2026. One, they'll be fast because you'll immediately see the trade areas where your best customers are. The second is you'll be focused because you'll know the type of customer segments that you are going for. And last, you'll be confident because you'll be able to see how much those people buy from you on average, as well as how much they spend and how much they're spending on your competitors. So how are we doing this? You might have been following along with us over this past year. If you haven't, we partnered with Affinity Solutions that has 150 million credit cards on file in the United States, anonymized and aggregated into our segmentation, and about $500 billion of total transactions. And when you connect that to segmentation, you open up four major use cases. One is you can see for the first time the percentage of each segment that has bought. Second, you can see the average yearly spend. That allows you to map the total value of a potential trade area. Next, you'll be able to see co-tenancy via cross shop of those cards. And then finally, you can chronicle and show over time competitive market share. Okay, if you haven't met me before, my name is Lyon Faust. I am the CEO of Spatial. We released the Persona Live segmentation in 2022. And we, at a high level, help retailers rank and target their best customers by reaching those people on the map or creating resonant marketing messages. And since 2022, we've brought on 750 retailers that use us for that reason. And we also have a number of partner companies. So I know people are joining from partner companies here on this webinar. So everything that I show you today is also available if you're working with one of our 12 partner companies. I'm going to get into the agenda, but if you could, Jimmy, first, I want to get a feel for who is on the call. I'm curious about the rules. So if you could launch that poll for us. How would you describe your role? Are you working as a site selection person at a retailer? Are you a research manager and a property owner? Are you coming from a partner company, marketing, or other? Okay. Seeing a lot of retail site selection. Okay. Got some others in there as well. And then very little marketing. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Right on. Okay. Let's get into it. That'll help me focus my conversation on the use cases. Okay. So here's our agenda today. One, we were going to go through the 2026 retail environment. As you guys know, it is in flux and changing, and I'm bringing some stats to that conversation. We'll talk about the segmentation landscape. And then we'll talk about how Persona Live fits into that. And then we're going to do a demo of four case studies. One is ranking in trade area analysis, merchandising, cross shop and co-tenancy, market share and trends, and Q&A. Again, please ask questions as we're going. We're going to hit them at the end, either in the chat or ideally in the Q&A portion. Okay, what is going on in retail in 2026? The short of it is the space is very scarce and the costs are up, and it makes the price of making a bad decision even worse. So the store closures are up 12% from last year. Vacancy is down 4.8%. It's down even more in grocery anchored centers, about 4% vacancy. It's the least vacancy we've had in a long time. Part of it is because the cost of new construction. And that also affects retailers when they're doing build out costs. It's up 4%. It's about $155 per square foot in 2026. I know that sounds like bad news, but there's some other stats that show retail is still very strong and alive. So in the past 3 months, year over year, retail sales has actually been up 5.87%, according to Affinity Solutions and CNBC Retail Monitor. It's partly bolstered by a 4.3% unemployment rate. So people have jobs, they are still spending on retail. Store openings are projected by the NRF to be up 1.4%, and that is up from 0.7%. And this is the unique thing going on in retail right now. You've probably heard people talk about the barbell retail economy. The best way that I can describe it is this. So if you look at grocery stores in particular, grocery stores that are value first, like Aldi, are up 8.3%. And grocery stores that are quality first, like Trader Joe's, are up 10%. The middle is flat. And so what we're seeing from retail is consumers are spending, but they're doing so more selectively. They're being very smart about how they spend. And so we need to be more selective in our approach to retail site selection and more fast, because there are less spaces available and more competition for those spaces. But who's winning in this economy? How are they doing it? So some of you may know that I have been doing some deep research on market share across a number of brands this year using our data. And I've picked out four winners this year in market share in 2025, that their primary way of gaining market share is actually building new stores as opposed to same store sales. And I'm just going to pick out a few of these and give you some insights on how they're winning in 2026. One is Ross. They're up 2.25% market share from 2022. They have 85 stores planned this year. And my insight in the analysis that I've been doing with Ross is they've been opening up stores right off of heavy retail areas. So they're not in the heaviest retail area, but in particular, they're opening it near heavily indexed customer segments for spending on Ross. Dutch Bros, I love what they've been doing in coffee over the past couple of years. So they're up 1.85%, a ton of store openings this year. What they've been doing is opening up smaller, more economic parcels, and they're doing it near Gen Z and specifically working class. And I think the kicker to this story is you would expect, okay, they're going to have a low ticket size because those people don't have the money to spend on that. That is not actually what's happening. So if you look at their ticket size, it's almost as much as Starbucks. So they're averaging about $13.75 per ticket, where Starbucks is averaging $14.67. So they're proving that people of working class neighborhoods will spend when it is a product that fits them. Five Below had one of the most cool moves that I've seen in retail in 2025. They bought 72 Party City leases in bankruptcy, and they opened up 8 stores in November, most of them on the northwest. And all 8 stores beat their grand opening sales records. So they bought them at a discount, and then the stores have done well. Why did those stores do well? I was looking at the Party City stores before, and those Party City stores were visited by Five Below's top customers. And so they essentially slotted themselves in where their customers were already going. And lastly, was a head scratcher to me at first. Since 2022, Amazon, 28 openings planned in 2026. They have opened 3 stores that are total head scratchers. And the first one I saw was Flint, Michigan, they're about $25,000 less median income than their typical stores. And they've done this in Muskegon, Mechanicsburg, and what they're doing is they're testing their ability to grow and mix blue collar markets. If they can perform well in these markets, that opens up about 25% of the map for them. So, what is the common denominator among these four big winners of 2025? So what they're doing is they're all four are opening in cost-efficient sites near unexpected customers that no one else is going after, by the way, that they know spend more on their brand. So how can we do the same thing? So the problem with the data that we have today is we know that people are more than their demographics, but our tools and our data do not reflect this. So what options do we have for understanding who our customer is beyond what their demographics say and looking into specifically how much will they spend on our brand? Here's the segmentation landscape. So when we're looking at our customer data, we're looking at our mobile data, we have a few options. One is demographics. It's just segmenting people based off of age and income or census block group characteristics. In the 1970s, they developed psychographic segmentation when they started to realize we actually need to know the mindsets and interests of these people. And the way they do that is they will cluster similar demographic block groups and then take a survey and apply it to those clusters and say, based on people of similar demographics, what might they do? And that's where we realized there was a huge opportunity in 2022 is you no longer have to segment people just on their demographics and ask surveys for what might they do. You can actually segment people based on what they do. What do I mean by what they do? So we use to segment the US population social media, mobile device visitation, individual demographic records of people, neighborhood information from their block groups, and finally, their credit card and debit card spend to classify every single block group into and every single household into one of these 80 different behavioral segments. And not only are these segments quantitatively more predictive than using demographics alone, they're also live in real time and we can attach them directly to a brand. So let's get into this. I'm going to show you guys the personalized segmentation. Okay, so here is the platform. Like I mentioned, we group every household into one of these 80 different segments. And I'm going to jump into a segment that I think is really interesting. Okay, so this is our family segment. And then you can see with the segment, you can see the basic stuff that you would expect from a segmentation: age, income, marital status, etc. But then you can really quickly see some things that are very different, like social media. What are they talking about right now, or the types of brands they visit? This is why I brought this segment up. When you're doing a segmentation based on how people behave, you get different types of segments. And one of the things that we notice about fusion families is although they're high income compared to the other people that live around them, if you look at their actual retail spend and visitation, it is very basic in budget. They are spending essentially what you would see or expect someone making 80 to 100,000 to spend. And so if you treat these people like they're making 150 to 200,000, you're going to miss the mark. But there are two exceptions with that. They will spend a ton on private schools. They'll also spend a lot on makeup. So what's going on here? We were looking at these particular segments and we can see they over-index on having a lot of first and second generation immigrants that have a totally different value set than us and more than likely have a than the typical Caucasian American. And so you see different spend patterns from these particular folks that are value conscious but have a high value on education for their families. So let me just take you through a few of the pieces of information that you can get on a segment. So you can go over here and see the geography of the segment, where these people show up. I know that these people are big in Texas, for example. It's going to come up in a use case in a little bit. If you want to see how much these people spend on over 2,500 brands, you can go to any category. So I just mentioned beauty. So let's go to beauty. Go to beauty and cosmetics. And I can see 16% of these people have purchased from Ulta Beauty in the past 12 months. Is that a lot or a little? That's compared to the national average here for purchasing from Ulta Beauty. It's 12.73%. These people spend 30% more than what you would expect the average American consumer. You can see Sephora is pretty high for them as well. And then you can also see their apparel spend as well. So I can say, all right, what types of active and athleisure did they buy? 8% have bought from Nike, 3.5% have bought from Adidas. A lot of them have also bought from Lululemon, but you see they actually have a higher index towards Nike and Adidas. Then you can also see the average yearly spend across these as well. Canada Goose is going to be higher just because it's a higher ticket size brand. You can see in-store visitation. So this is looking at their mobile visitation, and you can say, okay, what do these people visit nationally? But also, I want to know what these people visit specifically in Austin, Texas. And you can see Maurice's showing up 4 times more than the average Austinite. You can see the brands that these people follow, as well as channels, influencers, interests, and demographics. So, a lot you can learn about a segment. All right, so let's get into the meat of the presentation here. Use case number one, segment ranking and site filtering. So we can help with site selection by finding who your top segments are. We can rank them very quickly, and then we can map those ideal locations to see where is the next location for your brand. So let's do that. Instead of looking at the segments, we can actually rank segments by how much they spend. So I am going to go over here to Explore. And Explore allows you to rank personalized segments. So I'm going to type in Lululemon. And I can see the distribution of credit card spend and debit card spend across all of our segments for the Lululemon brand. So 26% of all of Lululemon's income is coming from ultra wealthy families. That's compared to their population base, which is 9.9%. These people are 2.6 times more likely to buy from Lululemon. You can also see the percent that's purchased, and that gives you penetration in segments. So they can see you have deep penetration in this educated urbanite segment. You can see the average ticket size. So who spends more on Lululemon? So Sunset Boomers, for example, actually, let me go to average yearly spend. We'll spend $366 on average, and that is compared to the average customer would spend $303, 21% more than average. And you can also look at frequency. So how frequently are these people coming back? And you can compare any of these against your competitors. So I want to compare that against Aloe. All I got to do is type in Aloe, and you can see that Lululemon in this case actually has more frequency than Aloe. So people are coming more often to Lululemon, except for a few segments that are highly indexed to frequency to Aloe Yoga, which is probably good to know for Lululemon. All right. So that is understanding your segments. I should probably mention that this is available across groups, our 80 different segments, as well as age ranges and income levels too. So you can also do that by demographics. But let's say we wanted to do a site selection exercise for Lululemon, and we want to target their top segments by revenue share, specifically for Ohio, because we want to grow our Lululemon portfolio in Cincinnati. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to type in Ohio, and it is going to regionalize all of the Lululemon spend specifically coming from that region in Ohio. So 14% of all Lululemon's revenue in Ohio is coming from suburb chic. Now, what we can do is we can take those top segments and map them to the trade area, knowing that the percentage, we know what percent of these people will buy, as well as how much they will spend on average in a year. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to hit map. And what I want to do is I want to make sure I have the highest indexing segments. So you can see cornfield Cabernet. They just make up a lot of Ohio, a lot of cornfields in Ohio. I live in Ohio. I get that. I'm looking at a cornfield right now. So I'm going to take these people out because they actually have a low index, just a lot of them in Ohio. And then I'm going to take out kids and country, and I might want to include some highly indexed segments like rising professionals here. Okay, so now we have our segment selected. Also see we got family outpost, and I can go ahead and confirm and push this into a map and map where these people are in Cincinnati. Okay, so now we have a census block group map of where our top segments are in Cincinnati. And I'm going to go over here and open up all my Lululemon locations here. And I can see here are 2 Lululemon locations. I can also back out and I can see more of them across the Ohio area. But let me just take a look at for these Lululemon locations, how many of them are our top segments. So I'm going to regionalize just to just Cincinnati here. All right, and we got our Michigan Avenue location, do a 3 mile radius. And I can see in this Michigan Avenue Lululemon that there are 19,000 total households that are the exact segments that we selected that are the highest spending for Lululemon. And I can compare that right over here to their Kenwood Mall location. And you can see in the Kenwood Mall locations, there are 12,050 total households in that area that are Lululemon's top 10 segments, which is about 42% of the population in that area. Now, one of the things that we can do is not only look at where the residents living, we can also look at where are they shopping. Our partner, Spatial BI, Andy Moncla team have developed what's called the Mobility Grid, which is an add-on. So I can hit Mobility Grid and I can look at the retail nodes where Lululemon's top segments are actually shopping. And you can see here that Kenwood Mall, which is a very popular mall in Cincinnati, actually has a deeper purple here because there are more people that are shopping there than the Norwood location. But what this also allows me to do is zoom out and I can find new prospective locations for Lululemon here by just looking at where are the retail nodes dense. And so I can see there's probably a room for one, two, three, four, maybe five Lululemons in this area. And then I can just pop a location right here and view a report. And we can see how this matches up to our current Kenwood Mall Lululemon. And we can see that actually 65% of the people that live in that area are our top segments. And there's 14,000 total people in that area that are top segments, which is actually more than the Kenwood Mall location. So we could expect that this would probably be a good location for Lululemon. So I just want to pause for a second and rerun on what we just did. In under 5 minutes here, we looked at Lululemon. We went from knowing nothing about them to ranking their top segments and then applying that to a map and then swapping it by where are the retail nodes where those people actually shop. And now we have a map of our prospective locations for Lululemon in the Cincinnati area. And the speed at which we did that, I think, is new and unique in retail site selection. Cool. Anybody have questions about that? Make sure to put that in the Q&A. I'm going to do one quick case study on retail site selection. So EOS Fitness, a lot of locations in Arizona, and they were working with Chris Myers and team at NewQuest, looking at how do we expand in the Houston market. And what Chris Myers was able to do with them as a site selection exercise is identify their top spending segments in Arizona and then find out where are the retail nodes where those types of segments exist in Houston. And they were able to use that to open up 20 locations across 2 years in the Houston market. And they went from 0 to 17% market share using that method and all the other work that the NewQuest team has done. And what was really cool is unique with the credit card panel. This is a post by Chris Myers. He was actually able to show the results of his work in retail site selection. And if you're a GIS manager or a research manager, you got to wait for a while to see your results. Sometimes you never even know if you did a good job. And now we can immediately see, did we take market share? And you can see here across 24-hour fitness, lifetime fitness, anytime fitness, Planet Fitness, and now EOS, they went from 0 to 17% market share in 2 years. So it was awesome to see the good work that NewQuest and EOS team was able to do with Personal Life. Okay, second use case here is merchandising. I know a lot of you people said that you're at a property owner and doing research, and so this will be a use case for you. So this allows you to look at the population of your trade area, rank the top brands for the types of brands that they spend at in that trade area, and then merchandise your center based on how those people actually behave and not their demographics alone. I'm actually going to start this out with a case study, and then we're going to reverse engineer what happened in that case study. So, Brixmor was trying to lease an open anchor location that they had in Monmouth, New Jersey. And they believed this was an excellent community for a large specialty organic grocery. And they got a few that were interested, but it just barely met the retailer's internal demographic scorecard. So, one particular grocer was like, hey, this is interesting, but there's not enough to just put us over the line on this. And what they are able to do is add the Persona Live segmentation to this and show that, okay, yeah, this maybe these people meet your demographic scorecard, but they're also really interested in the things that you would hope to see in your trade areas. Like they follow Athleta, they visit the Fresh Market, Whole Foods, Bar 3, and Cycle Bar. And they're able to use this to, as it turns out, land Trader Joe's in that particular center, which is life changing for that community, and is it totally changes the dynamic of that particular asset. And so they did this before spend data was available. They were just using the behaviors of those people and their segments. We're going to reverse engineer this now using spend data. So let me show how we would approach that. See, I'm going to refresh my map here, and we're going to head over to Monmouth, New Jersey. Okay. So I think this over here was the general area of where that center was. So I'm going to select that, and I want to view a report. I just want to know what segments are in that area. And I can see the top segment in that area, 20% of the population are family outposts. So we need to understand, how do we merchandise for those people based on how they behave. And in this case, we're looking specifically at the grocers they typically spend at nationally. So I can look at family outposts, get a feel for what the segment is, but I can go to overall spend here, and then I can hit grocery, supermarkets, and what I'm going to get here is a ranked supermarket list. And you can see that Trader Joe's actually happens to be Family Outpost number 1 purchased grocer across the nation. So 30% of these people have purchased. That's against a base. The average purchase across the nation is 14%. These people are twice as likely to purchase from Trader Joe's as the national average. Again, Brixmor did this before the credit card spending was available, and now we can prove, hey, listen, this is a great opportunity for Trader Joe's. And you can do that for any center as long as you know the types of segments that are either visiting using mobile data or living around that center. You can merchandise it for whatever you want. So if we want to merchandise this and continue to build that center out, let's say we wanted to put a gym in that center, we can hit gyms, and then we can see the top gyms that these people visit. So Lifetime Fitness would be a great one here. Those people are 2.7 times more likely to visit a Lifetime Fitness than the national average. And you can do that for any category. Okay. Number 3, cross shopping and co-tenancy. Okay. So we built the cross shop function specifically for retailers because we wanted to help them understand who their top competitors are. And what this feature ended up getting used for most is actually for identifying co-tenants. Which other brands do my customers buy from? So let me show you cross-shop co-tenancy. So within Explore here, I can go down to cross-shop and I can choose any brand. So let's say I wanted to understand for Aloe Yoga, who are the ideal brands that Aloe Yoga would need to show up next to. So as soon as you type in a brand, you're going to get the category at the end, so we can actually see how competitive they are with brands. See, they're very competitive with Vuori, for example. Their customers, 12% of Aloe Yoga customers have bought from Vuori, which is 19 times the national average. But if you break this out into all, then you're going to see across all categories, where do Aloe Yoga type customers spend? And so you can see for Aloe Yoga, a lot of these are just going to be basic things like Target. Just because there's a lot of them, there's going to be a higher percentage. But what we want to look for specifically is index. So I can see, again, Lululemon showing up pretty high there just because it's a competitor. But over here, Nordstrom. So Aloe Yoga customers are 6.9 times more likely to buy from Nordstrom than the national average. They are 3.3 times more likely to buy from Ulta Beauty than the national average. And you can go down here and swap these specifically by index, and you can get a good feel for what are the potential co-tenants. Zara would be another potential co-tenant for Aloe Yoga. And one thing that has surprised me that I have seen people do, specifically property owners, is they've actually focused specifically on a segment. So they'll say, I am trying to merchandise my center for Gen Z. So I'm going to put the current segments or the current retailers that I already know I have in the center. What do I need to backfill an open lease with? And they'll say, okay, I'm doing this for Gen Z. So they'll go over here to age ranges, go to Gen Z. And now we can see of all of our Gen Z cards that have purchased from Aloe Yoga, who should be the common co-tenant. And you see Sephora didn't show up very high before. Now it's showing up very high for Gen Z. So Sephora specifically for Gen Z would be a great co-tenant. Right on. And then this is the last one. I'm gonna skip that case study. Last one is trends. So this is tracking your market share over time. You can see year over year sales versus your competitors and ticket size versus your competitors. And this is a great way to identify if you have a new competitor that's rising or if you are growing compared to your competitors in a particular geography. And I'm going to show you a use case that stunned me in 2024 from a brand called Uniqlo. So Uniqlo historically was very popular with deep penetration on the coasts and very dense urban areas. And like somewhat out of nowhere, I saw that they had opened 4 stores in 2 months in the Texas area, both Dallas and Houston. And to me, that came out of absolutely nowhere. Now, to be clear, we don't work with Uniqlo, so I don't know what data that they're using to do this, but they clearly know that there was an opportunity for opening in Middle America near a suburban segment that they had never sold to in the past, or at least had never been close to in physical proximity. So let me show you what happened to their market share when they opened up those locations. So first, I want to identify the segment that Uniqlo was able to find. So I can type in Uniqlo. I can get a rank segmentation here for Uniqlo. And you can see down here, Fusion families, two times more likely than the national average to buy from Uniqlo, makes up 4.9% of their sales. It's the only suburban segment they have over here in this top seven. The rest of them are dense urban areas. So something is going on specifically with that segment, and they can buy from them because Uniqlo has e-commerce, which is I'm expecting that's probably how they identified this. So where do I find Fusion families? I can go over here and map them by selecting that, and I can find the zip codes where those people are present. So I'm going to do this by zip code, and I can back out and see there are a lot over here in Washington, but in particular, there are a ton in the Texas area here. Do a CBG, do by zip. There we go. So we can see this is where they live in the Texas area. And clearly Uniqlo understood this because what they did next was pretty amazing. They opened up those 5 locations within 2 months. And I'm going to pull this up on credit card trends. You can see across the US, Uniqlo has gone from 3.78% market share against a select number of their competitors to now 9.97 market share. But particularly in Texas, we can see that they went from 1% market share and they opened it up in October of 2024. And by December, they had 10% market share across their competitors in the Texas market. And more interesting than that is if you look at their penetration now with that particular segment nationally, if you look at their segments, I can type in Fusion Families here. I can see that they went from 4% market share to now 14% market share across their competitors with this suburban segment that they had never had physical locations near them. And again, remember who this is. Uniqlo is primarily like an Asian focused brand, and they're targeting Fusion families, which we already discovered in the beginning, over index on being immigrants. And so there is already a affinity going on here that is not necessarily to income. It's specifically related to values, interests, and attitudes, which we're picking up with Persona Live. Right on. So in 2026, the retail landscape has changed, and Persona Live Spend can change how you play the game. Just going to mention the 7 ways that the game has changed. Now you can see the percentage of each segment who has bought across 2,500 retail brands, the average yearly spend for that. You add those two things together and you get a total trade area potential value. You can see competitive market share across any of your competitors, identify segments that you can win against those competitors, which Uniqlo did. And now you can see co-tenancy via cross-shop to find the ideal co-tenants to locate near. And finally, you can act immediately upon the results. We've had a lot of companies use this and really like the Spend product. In fact, most of our customers are now using Spend. All right, and here's the offer for you guys, which I'm really excited about. If you go to www.spatial.ai/webinar offer, you get a free hour of consultation with me, and all you need to bring is your top addresses. If you have customer data, we can use that, and the top prospective market that you want to find the ideal location for. And what we will do in that call is I'll give you your ranked customer segments, a competitive analysis against how are your competitors doing that area, and I will show you the ideal locations just like I did based on the population as well as the types of retail nodes as people are visiting, and you will come out of that conversation knowing where your next location needs to be in your prospective market. So I'm pretty pumped about this. I hope you guys will take that up. Jimmy, would you mind putting that link into the chat so anybody can go in there and have a conversation with
Yeah,
me? Okay.
for sure.
Let's jump into the questions. And Jimmy, if you could help me figure out how to pull those up, that would be helpful for me. Let's
So
see if I can do
we've got
that.
some in the chat and some in the Q&A. So maybe start with the Q&A.
Yeah, let's go there. I can see the chat, and for whatever reason, I can't see the Q&A. So hit me with the questions, Jimmy.
All right. Some of these are maybe going to be hard to do because they're referencing specific points while you're going on a specific topic. Um, but we had one question from Soren of how the
I can
index
see
is
him now,
calculated.
Jimmy.
Okay.
Yeah, I can tackle that. Okay. Okay, Josh, you're saying that you logged in and you want to see spend, but you need to upgrade. Just click that. You can go to our pricing page and you can see the price for spend, and I can walk you through that. Um, how is the index calculated? Okay, so depending on where you're looking at the platform, what we're looking at is if we're looking at the index for a segment's revenue share, we're looking at the population of that segment. So let's say the population is 10% of the US versus that brand's revenue share of that particular segment. So if their revenue share is 20%, those people only make up 10% of the population in the trade area, then they would be twice as likely to buy. Okay. What potential are you using and how do you append the segment code? Good question. The way that we're appending segment codes directly to the credit card data is we're actually matching it in a cloud environment in its encrypted state. So it's going directly to the individual person. Okay, got another question. This is great. Understood about big brands like Lulu, Aloe, and Uniqlo, but do you have credit card spend for nascent brands? Good question. Hey guys, we do not have credit card spend for small brands. So if you're mom and pop, we're not going to have credit card spend with that. Um, I should mention, which I didn't do, and I'm going to do this really quickly. Um, Even if you don't have credit card spend, what you can do in the analyze section is you can add your locations here by adding an address, or you can add a brand that's already there. And then you can see I just did this for it looks like Hobby Lobby's 2025 openings. And then you can look at the segments that are around that location or the trade area around that location. So you can do that with addresses. And we also have customer data. So you can append your customer list to this. And you can see I have one that I've done. And we'll append it directly to your own sales data. But if you're a really small brand, you're probably not going to show up in credit card spend. Okay. Is there any non-US coverage of persona location spend data? Jason, I'm sorry, there's not US. This is 100% focused on the US. Okay. For cross shop, if a brand is not included in your list, is it possible to use a segmented list as a base? No, because then you're kind of comparing apples and oranges here. So I'm guessing, Joel, you're talking about uploading a customer list, and we don't do a match across that. And if it, for cross up, it actually has to show up in our credit card data to get that because we need to use the same panel for that. If that makes sense. Okay. To find similar areas, let me just go back to this. To find similar areas, do you use all stores of the brand or only their top stores? Also, in cities like New York, where stores are packed next to each other, how confident are you that footfall is correctly attributed to the store? Okay, good question. Let me hit both of those. So the first one, to find similarities, do you use all stores of the brand or only the top stores? You have some options here. If you're really small and you're not on the credit card data, I would use your top stores. Let's say top five performers and map those segments across. And I like to see the difference between the top five and your bottom five, just to make sure that there is a difference there. And then you're mentioning cities like New York, where places are packed next to each other, where it's like multi-level. I didn't really show any mobile data in this, although you can upload mobile data um, to the platform and segment that. But yeah, I have low confidence if it's multi-level using mobile data, or if it's like a really small parcel that you're talking about, there's noise that can get in there. Sometimes it's a small parcel. I recommend using the whole center and saying, hey, these are the people that are coming, but don't necessarily think it's your exact customers. Really good questions for that, Gautam. Okay. Do you have vacancy information for top candidate locations? No, I don't have that. I just talked to a provider that does. So, we're thinking about putting it in there, but that would take you to the next step. All right. Do you provide a scorecard for the merchandising mix of a center compared with the demographic social spending for a community fit? Brad, this would be something that you could create that scorecard yourself. Everything here is downloadable off of the platform. So we don't create a scorecard, but we would give you the data that you would need to create a scorecard. So you could download two things there, the segment mix of that center, as well as the tenant mix, and then use the cross shop, and you could create your own scorecard that way. Okay, guys. Hey, sorry we don't have any more time for questions. I love that you guys were engaged here. If you guys are interested in doing a 1 hour consultation where I will work with your team on finding the next top locations in a new market, I would love to do that. Go to spatial.ai/webinar offer, and we'll see you there. Anything else, Jimmy?
No, thanks everybody for coming.
Thank you.